Well, good morning, church. I want to take you on a journey with me this morning. I want to take you to a long, long time ago, to a faraway land on the complete other side of the world. Oh, yeah. Kiddos, continue to make your way down the center aisle. Thanks, kiddos. Hit the play button, hit pause there for a second. So, faraway land, complete other side of the world, long, long time ago. I want to take you to a sleepy little town called Bethlehem. And this story I want to tell you and take you back to is a redemption story. It has uncertain times, unforeseen, dangerous times. It's a story where you have a groom who's older than his bride. You have the birth of a baby. You even have a shepherd and a king. You might be thinking, okay, Kip, come on, man. Come on. We know this story. It's Christmas time. It's true, Jesus is the reason for the season, but that's not the name of this sermon series. The name of the sermon series is Anticipating Christmas in the Old Testament. So we're not talking about the birth of our Savior today. We're talking about 1,000 years, 1,100 to be specific. Before that, we're talking about the story of Ruth and Boaz. That's the story of unforeseen circumstances, dangerous times, a groom who's older than his bride, a shepherd, a king, a baby being born. All that's in there. So go ahead and turn, if you've got your paper Bible, turn to Ruth chapter 1. If you've got your phone, pull it up. Pull up Ruth chapter 1. That's where we're going to be. We're going to move right through it, so hang in there. But as you're turning or pulling up Ruth chapter 1, I want to kind of fill you in on the background of that whole story. This is during the time of the Judges. So there's an entire book devoted to the Judges, but during the time of the Judges, in between when they came into the land of Israel and when the monarchy started with Saul, about 100 years or so after this story takes place. During this time in Israel, it is rather chaotic. It's kind of a dark time spiritually. It's a dark time physically. During this time, if you read through the book of Judges, you can see probably Ruth is a contemporary of Gideon. So you can see Gideon in that story. You can start reading that in Judges chapter 6. That story, Mount Moriah, the Midianites coming in, conquering. Gideon is operating north of where Boaz lives in Bethlehem, okay? Now, also a contemporary, most likely, is Samson. So the story of Samson, you look at that in the book of Judges. Samson's operating to the west of where Bethlehem is. In fact, one of the events in the Samson narrative happens about a day's walk from where Boaz lives. So that's kind of the time frame. So you see what's going on in the land, and that's where the story begins in the book of Ruth, but it doesn't start with Ruth. It starts with a different family. Let's take a look. Verse 1, Ruth 1:1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. This man, we're going to find out, his name is Elimelech, and his wife is Naomi. They have 2 boys, Mahlon and Chilion. They have a famine there in their region. We don't know why the famine was there, but typically in the time of the Judges, if there was a famine or some sort of judgment, it was because they had turned away from following God. For whatever reason, there's a famine, and they moved down to Moab to find food. So, well, where is Moab? Well, if you took a trip to the land of Israel, which back last October we had the opportunity to do that as a church, about 43 of us went over there. If you stand on the western shore on the Israeli side of the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea, southern Israel, if you stand on the Israeli side and you look out across the shore to the other side, several miles across, at the other side and the sprawling countryside there, that's Moab. That's where Moab is. Now it's southwest Jordan today, but that's where Elimelech takes his family to go and to move to find food. During the time there in Moab, Elimelech dies, leaving Naomi widowed, but she still has her 2 boys. Well, the boys marry local Gentile gals. One marries Orpah, and the other marries Ruth. Now, after about 10 years, Mahlon and Chilion both die. So now we are left in the story with 3 widows. 3 widows fending for themselves in the land of Moab. Naomi hears at some point that the Lord has restored food and provision in Israel, in Bethlehem, and so she decides she's going to go home. She's going to make the trip back, and she tells the girls, hey, stay here, don't go, don't come back, live a life, get married, have kids. And they both say, you know what, we're not going to do that, we're going to come with you. Our destiny is tied to you. Well, Naomi makes a stronger plea, and after the second stronger plea, Orpah decides, you know what, I am staying, I'm out. But Ruth, the text says, clings to Naomi. And we see there in verse 16, Ruth replies, it's not just cling, I mean, this is pretty devout. Chapter 1, verse 16, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I'll go, and where you stay, I'll stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I'll die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. And I love that next line. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, you think, she stopped urging her. So Naomi and Ruth go together from Moab, travel back into Israel, up to Bethlehem. And I would love for somebody to make this into a movie one day. I would love to see this story in a movie form. I mean, just get somebody to produce it, somebody to direct it. This would be amazing. It's got 3 acts like most good movies have. It would be perfect. But in this particular movie, we would see them walking up to this little town nestled on a hillside, which we actually got to go to at that Israel trip also. Standing on that hillside where Bethlehem was built and settled, and looking across the rolling fields that sprawl out, which were the shepherd's fields in the first century, but back then they were the barley fields of Boaz. That's the context of them coming into Bethlehem. It just so happens to be at the time of harvest. It doesn't just so happen. I'm telling you, this is very movie-like. And what's even better, it's not based on a true story. It is a true story. I love that. I love that aspect of it. Great Christmas movie, by the way. This would be a great Christmas movie. Look at chapter 2, verse 1. Now, Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing whose name was Boaz. Okay, this is kind of a narrator's note. The narrator, who scholars believe, is Samuel. Samuel probably wrote and documented the story of Ruth under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. Now, the readers, the actors, Naomi and Ruth here in the story, they're privy to information we don't have, so Samuel gives this information to us. By the way, the relative on her husband's side from Elimelech's clan was Boaz. And Ruth, the Moabitess, verse 2, said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. They need food. These are 2 widows. Now, back in that day and time, they didn't have the man in their life to help provide and protect. They were scavenging, hunting on their own to survive. Let me go to the fields and pick up leftover grain. Let me go just find grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. As it turned out, I love that phrase. What do you know? She found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who, coincidentally, I think not, was from the clan of Elimelech. Look at how God is orchestrating and putting this all together and setting this up. All of this is coming together here. I'm telling you, this would be a great Christmas movie. Ruth works hard all morning. She is gathering, trying to get enough grain so that she can go back and she and Naomi can make bread to survive. So she's gathering. Boaz comes on the scene, and what I love about Boaz, he's got this great rapport with his team, with his crew. So they greet him in the Lord with favor. He greets them in the Lord with favor. And he looks over, sees his foreman, and says, "Hey, who's the new girl? Who's that?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, that's the Moabitess from Moab." Thanks, man. I appreciate you clarifying that. I knew that by Moabitess. But he does. That's what he says. He says, "That's the Moabitess from Moab." And he says, she's been working hard all day. She's only taken one break, and that's it. She's a hard worker. So Boaz goes up and has a conversation with Ruth and talks to her. It says, look, they had lunch, and she dined with the team, and he said, look, he gave her some leftovers and said, this afternoon, here's what I want you to do. Don't go anywhere else. Stay in my field. Glean from my field. Stay with my girls. Stay with my workers, and don't go anywhere else. Ruth is a little bit stumped and confused by this. And so she doesn't quite fully understand why Boaz would do this for her. And so we see that in chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. This is Boaz's reply. Boaz replied after she had said, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" He said, "I've been told all about what you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you left your father and mother and your homeland and you came to live with the people you didn't know before. May the Lord repay you for what you've done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." That phrase is going to be very important to the story. Put a pin in that. Remember that. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you've come to take refuge. Later on that afternoon, Ruth continues to gather. Unbeknownst to her, Boaz told his team, "Hey, listen, guys, here's the deal. So I don't want you just to leave scraps for Ruth the Moabitess. Pull out some of the good stuff and drop it and leave it behind. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to get upset at you. Just leave the good stuff and let her gather it." And she did. All afternoon, all day she worked. And at the end of the day, she goes and she threshes her own grain and gets the seeds and gets the grain together, puts it in a container, and it's an ephah. It's about 3/5 of a bushel of probably barley grain during that season and harvest. Now, some of you may have grown up on a farm. I did not. And so my curious mind was wondering, okay, how much bread can you make from 3/5 of a bushel of grain? Well, if you grew up in an urban, kind of a city context like I did, what do you do when you don't know the answer to something agricultural? You Google it. So I Googled it. How much bread could you, I'm serious, you can check my search history. I did. Conservatively, what she brought home from day one could have made about 70 loaves of bread. It's a lot. That's a lot. For two women who were scavenging, trying to find a way to survive, coming in with enough grain to make 70 loaves of bread day one, that's pretty substantial. Pretty substantial. So you can understand why in verse 19 of chapter 2, Naomi reacted the way she did. Her mother-in-law asked her, I think that may be understating it, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she had been working and said, "Well, the name of the man I worked with today is Boaz." Yeah, that's his name, Boaz. Ruth may not have known who Boaz was. Naomi did. Look at this, verse 20. "The Lord bless him," Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She added, "That man is our close relative. He's one of our kinsman redeemers." That's a new term to the story here. The term kinsman redeemer is a Hebrew word for goel. It was a concept in the Old Testament that you find all over the place. The goel, the kinsman redeemer, could do a lot of things. One of the things the goel could do is redeem property. So it could purchase property that a family member had either sold or given up that couldn't reacquire for him or herself. Goel could do that. A goel could marry the bride of a widow and keep that man's family line, that widow's husband, deceased husband's family line ongoing by marrying that widow. Goel could redeem that bride. A goel could purchase a family member who was in slavery to free them from that slavery because they couldn't get out of it on their own. A goel also would bring vengeance and justice against the family's enemy, to bring restoration and justice to the situation. A lot of different things a goel could do, and Naomi identifies Boaz as one of those. He goes, "Oh, this guy's related to us. He's a kinsman redeemer. This guy's a goel." Now, it's important to this story, but it's also going to be important to the story that you're more familiar with about the baby's birth in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago, about 1,000 years after this story. We move into chapter 3. Chapter 3, Naomi plays a different role. Naomi, instead of giving ideas for provision, Naomi kind of becomes the role of matchmaker. The wheels in Naomi's mind are turning, and she's got an idea. And if this were the movie, this would be kind of mid-act 2, and the tension would be building because Ruth and Boaz have been spending time together. They've been near each other, and the harvest time is coming to an end. You know, the harvest moon's almost ending. What are we going to do? You got to go back to your life. This could be a great Christmas movie, I'm telling you. Naomi says, okay, here's what you're going to do. Harvest is coming to a close. What you're going to do is you're going to go find out where Boaz sleeps on the harvest floor, okay? Go find him, and when you do, when he's asleep, go uncover his feet and go lay down at his feet. He'll take care of the rest. And Ruth, devoted daughter-in-law, says, you know what? Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. She goes down, uncovers his feet there, and let's see verse 7 of chapter 3. Let's start the story there. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. Yeah, there's somebody at your feet, man. In the middle of the night, something startled the man, and he turned and discovered a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I'm your servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer. The Lord bless you, my daughter, he replied. This kindness is greater than what you showed earlier. You have not run after the young men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid, for I will do for you all you ask. All my fellow townsmen know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it's true that I am near of kin, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem, good. Let him redeem. But if he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning. what we have here is a little bit of a marriage proposal. So where are you getting that, Kip? Well, look at verse 9. Turn back. I got to turn the page here. But go back to verse 9 in what she tells him. When he says, who are you? She says, spread the corner of your garment over me, okay? Remember that phrase. Now, go back to, if this were a movie when the main protagonists meet, Boaz and Ruth meet for the first time, in movie terminology, that's called the meet cute. And so at their meet cute back in chapter 2, Boaz had told Ruth, may the Lord bless you richly, the God of Israel bless you, under whose wings you have taken refuge. Okay? In chapter 3, Ruth says, spread the corner of your garment over me since you're a kinsman redeemer. The word corner that Ruth uses here is the Hebrew word, same Hebrew word for wing. What Ruth is telling Boaz is, spread your wing over me. She's telling him point blank, that blessing you prayed for from the God of Israel to seek refuge under his wings, I want your wings to be those that I seek refuge under and am provided for. This is a marriage proposal, folks. And don't think that Boaz misunderstood. Boaz didn't misunderstand at all. He understood exactly what was going on. In fact, if you look at it, you can see here in the text that he says, there's a kinsman redeemer that's a little bit closer than I am, but if he won't do it, I will. Boaz, he had done the mental math in his head, how far away he was to be able to do this. He says, there's one in front of me, but let me work on it. Okay? Let me work on it. So I love that. And if you look there, before we get to verse 18 of chapter 3, I would love to see, when Ruth goes back to Naomi, I see it this way, and the director might think I'm a little pushy because I might want some creative input if this is going to be a movie, okay? But I could just see Ruth walking through the door, the threshold of the house, and Naomi sitting there and kind of at the counter, so how'd it go? I mean, that's verse 16. How did it go, my daughter? How do you think she said it? How'd it go? Ruth told her, and Ruth told her everything. And verse 18, Naomi says, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. Get this. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. And just to emphasize that point, verse 1 of chapter 4, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Really does say, meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate. The idea there is simultaneous to that conversation between Ruth and Naomi, Boaz is already working logistics. He's working it out. He goes to the city gate, the town gate, and what's really cool about that trip to Israel is we actually got to, at a place called Megiddo, kind of west of Bethlehem, northwest of Bethlehem. We saw a fortification of a town that was still, the gates were still there from a Canaanite civilization in Solomon and Ahab on the mountaintop there. And in the gates, there were cutouts, kind of alcoves, if you will, 3 different ones is a big city. And that's where the city leaders would meet and gather and conduct business and do trade. And there were 3 of those, probably just one in Bethlehem. It was a smaller town. But that's why Boaz went to the city gate. He went there to find this other Goel. So when the guy does show up and comes down walking, he says, hey, buddy, come here for a second. Have a seat. I got something I need to talk to you about. And then he sees 10 of the elders, and apparently that's what you need for a quorum to call the business meeting to order, like any good Baptist, or, well, these guys predate Baptist, but he got 10 of the elders, which was enough to apparently make it legit and official. So he has this to say, and he tells them this. He says in verse 3 of chapter 4, then he said to the kinsman redeemer, Naomi, who's come back from Moab, is selling a piece of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. You know, I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you'll redeem it, do so. But if you won't, tell me, so I'll know. For no one has the right to do it except you. Oh, and I'm next in line. Just saying. The guy says, I'll redeem it. There's no mention of Ruth here. You know, and I don't know Boaz, but as believers, we will meet him one day. And I could almost see this as classic Boaz, you know. Oh, yeah. One more thing. One more thing. Yeah. One more thing. Look at this one more thing. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy the land from Naomi and from Ruth the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. Boy, that guy, the details, right? That guy gives the quickest ancient version of nope. In fact, he doesn't want this to be hanging, so he takes off his sandal and hands it to Boaz like, no takes-backs, man. This is done. You have her. You have the land. You get it all. I'm out. I don't want to jeopardize my estate. That's what he says. And that would be a beautiful story right then and there. That's a great wrap-up to the story right there. I mean, that's the happy ending. But that's not where the story finishes. Then there's a lot more that gets set in motion here. Verse 11, then the elders and all those at the gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who's coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. There's the Bethlehem and Ephrathah again. Interesting. Verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. Then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer, a Goel. May he become famous throughout Israel. He'll renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. The women living there said, Naomi has a son. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. There's your shepherd and king, by the way. I kind of snuck that in on you a little bit. But David, that's King David, the shepherd who became king. What you see here in this story are the ancestors of the baby born in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. These folks are in direct lineage of the King of Kings, who would be born in a manger a little over 1,000 years after the events in the book of Ruth. But the biggest connection between Ruth and Boaz and Jesus is the Goel, the kinsman redeemer. That term, it may or may not be a new term for you. If it is, the Goel, the kinsman redeemer, is used throughout the prophecies of Isaiah alluding to the Messiah. All over the book of Isaiah about the Messiah. And in the LXX, the Septuagint, which Pastor Colin actually talked about last week, in the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of what we know as the Hebrew Old Testament, there's 3 Greek words translated for Goel in the Old Testament. Those Greek words are also used to translate Redeemer in the New Testament, with the same concept. There's a direct corollary, direct connection between those Old Testament Goel terms and the New Testament terms for Redeemer. They're connected. Paul uses the Goel terminology, kinsman redeemer terminology, throughout his writings. In multiple letters that he writes, Peter even uses the Goel terminology. Jesus himself uses the Goel terminology. In Mark 10:45, he says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a Goel, as a ransom for many." There's a direct connection to Jesus Christ. See, the Goel purchases for a family member what that family member cannot purchase for him or herself. Jesus Christ purchased us with his blood on the cross. A Goel rescues his family member from slavery. Jesus rescued us from the slavery to sin and death. A Goel rescues and marries his bride. In the New Testament, Jesus is referred to as the groom, and we, his people, the church, are his bride. The Goel brings vengeance and justice against his family's enemy. Pastor Colin talked about this 2 weeks ago, back in the Garden of Eden in Genesis 3. Vengeance and justice was predicted against the enemy Satan and sin and death. That's the Goel. That's who Jesus is. Jesus Christ is fully man and fully God. As fully man, he is our kinsman. As fully God, he is our Redeemer. Jesus Christ came to earth 2,000 years ago, born as a baby, lived a perfect life, died on the cross as our Goel, as our kinsman redeemer, to save us from our sin, be raised again to life 3 days later, so that you, by faith in him, could have the possibility of having that relationship restored with him that he created you to have, to save you from your sin, to give you life, that you can live life abundantly. Let's pray.